Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining me. How are you? Have a good day, everyone, and God bless you. Alright, now we will come to today's news. There's being a hypocrite and then there's being a Democrat. It takes the concept of hypocrisy, being a hypocrite, to a whole other level. I mean, holy moly, the absolute lack of self-awareness, but honestly, it's not even necessarily self-awareness. They do it on purpose. They're aware of the hypocrisy. They just don't care. They're such political vultures that at the end of the day, words are just tools to manipulate to get what they want. It's the perfect recipe for dishonesty and hypocrisy, corruption. In other words, the perfect recipe for being a Democrat. You know, I spoke about this last month after they selected Hakeem Jeffries as Nancy Pelosi's successor, and of course people like Ted Lieu getting promotions as well. All you got to do to climb the ranks in the Democrat establishment is be as dishonest, disingenuous, hyperbolic, hyper-partisan as possible. The person who most resembles the Adam Schiff model is the person who will succeed, and boy oh boy are we seeing that with Mr. Hakeem Jeffries. This guy is a friggin' clown. I mean, Nancy Pelosi was bad. But to be honest, after one single day of being exposed to Hakeem Jeffries as the Democrat Party House leader, I'm questioning myself, was she this bad? I don't even know. This guy might be taking Democrat dishonesty and Democrat hypocrisy to a whole other level, a brand new height, if you even thought that that was possible. Let me show you guys exactly what I mean. Alright folks, so dealing with Nancy Pelosi over the last two Democrat-led houses has been something, to say the least. It's been quite interesting. Well, it seems as though that tradition is going to continue with dopey Hakeem Jeffries. First of all, when it comes to leadership material and just basic competence, I'm not really seeing it with this guy. But when it comes to honesty and integrity, well, that's where he really loses me. Take a look at Hakeem Jeffries' viral moment on the House floor. Everyone listen to this. House Democrats will always put American values over autocracy, benevolence over bigotry, the Constitution over the coat, democracy over demagogues, economic opportunity over extremism, freedom over fascism, governing over gaslighting, hopefulness over hatred, enclosing over isolation, justice over judicial overreach, knowledge over kangaroo courts, liberty over limitation, maturity over Mar-a-Lago, normalcy over negativity, opportunity over obstruction, people over politics, quality of life issues over queuing on, reason over racism, substance over slander, triumph over tyranny, understanding over ugliness, voting rights over voter suppression, working families over the well-connected, Zinio over xenophobia, yes we can over you can do it, and zealous representation over their real confrontation. Okay folks, this one's gonna get a big old yikes. From me, Maze on Twitter had the best reaction in the comment section. Sounds like a drunk Obama, totally succinct with a great comedic edge. But I'd really rather focus on the hypocrisy of it all. These dishonest Democrat goons, man, the way they're constantly projecting self-righteousness, moral superiority, as if they're so much better than you. And they're always using these words, these specific labels, but it's almost as if they don't even know the definition of half the words that they use. Of course, at the end of the day, it's more dishonest than that. It's what I was mentioning earlier in the intro. They view words as manipulative tools to gain power, because if you were being an honest Democrat, then you wouldn't be able to say pretty much 90% of what Hakeem Jeffries said. Let's first start off with the hypocrisy, or the audacity to virtue signal on the issue of gaslighting. Now, what's the definition of gaslighting? To manipulate someone using psychological methods into questioning their own sanity or power of reasoning. It's an emotionally manipulative tactic used to make people question their own reality or their own sanity. Where the hell do Democrats get off virtue signaling on the issue of gaslighting? That is basically their modus operandi. All they ever do is emotionally manipulate using fear-mongering tactics in the most dishonest and disingenuous manner possible. Not to mention, he then goes on to connect Republicans to QA and on. If anything, that's a form of political gaslighting. He's also virtue signaling about divisive news and hatefulness as he attacks Republicans. Democrats want to talk about the issue of hate, love not hate. They say love trumps hate. They say yet they're the most vile, antagonistic, hate-filled group in American politics. Their Twitter history basically says it all. He said, and I quote, hopefulness over hatred coming from the party of hate, inclusion over exclusion coming from the Democrat Party that was just attacking Byron Donalds as being a racial prop of the GOP coming from the Democrat Party that operates essentially like an ideological cult where you have to conform to their dogmatic belief or else you'll be shunned. Then he says justice over judicial overreach. Justice, you say, coming from the party that launched several phony investigations that regularly presents falsified evidence under oath because they're so hell-bent on arresting Donald Trump and stopping his political endeavors, coming from the party of Adam Schiff and the rest of these clowns who have been caught colluding with big tech and federal agencies trying to bend, censor and arrest journalists and political opponents, not to mention regular American citizens. You know, the party of the January 6th committee. I mean, you can't talk about judicial overreach without mentioning the January 6th committee or Merrick Garland as corrupt actions and corrupt investigations of the DOJ. Then the next words that he says are knowledge over kangaroo courts. You cannot say kangaroo courts without the January 6th insurrection panel. He says knowledge over kangaroo courts. Since when has the January 6th committee led by Democrats or the 2 impeachment trials and several investigations against Donald Trump ever been focused on knowledge or facts as opposed to their kangaroo court tactics? It does not get any more dishonest than this. Everything that he's virtue signaling about is exactly what Democrats are most guilty of. They have thrown away any type of credibility, dignity, honesty in their attempts to destroy Donald Trump. I mean, speaking of gaslighting, they've been gaslighting the American public for the last 6 years, trying to make you question your own sanity with all of their fake news, trying to make you look and feel insane for supporting Donald Trump. If that's not gaslighting, that I don't know what it is. It's a mass Democrat gaslighting campaign that has gone on for more than half of a decade at this point. You know, it sounds great on paper. It sounds great on surface level. I agree with everything that Hakeem Jeffries said except for maybe the Mar-a-Lago statement and the whole voter suppression Democrat stick, but at the end of the day, he doesn't actually mean it. He's just saying words. You know, I would love to see the Democrats actually practice. We should condemn your kangaroo courts. You are divisive. You are liars, propagandists and gaslighters. Say what you will talk is cheap. Let's see action. You want unity, you want an end to the divisive news. Well, then how about you stop virtue signaling and actually take action on what you're saying here? Of course, that's never gonna happen. It's just manipulative rhetoric. It's all it ever is. The Democrat modus operandi is propaganda through fear. It can't be talking about division. Well, some of the most high-profile House Democrats are doing media tours saying stuff like this. Eric Swalwell and other House Democrats fear potential mass shooting by QAnon Republican after removal of metal detectors. Some House Democrats are living in fear of a potential shooting after metal detectors were removed from the House of Representatives under the slim majority of Republicans. According to a new report, Ross Story spoke to multiple House Democrats lamenting the loss of magnetometers, which were originally installed after the January 6th Capitol riots, and expressing concern over their Republican colleagues. A lot of my Republican colleagues glorify violence and proudly display the firearms that they have in their offices. So it just makes me nervous that we could have a workplace violent event. Representative Eric Swalwell told Ross Story this week. They're not the most stable people. I mean, let's talk about propaganda, fear-mongering, divisive news, hatred, gaslighting. Republicans endorse violence. They say after Democrats endorsed violence throughout the summer of riots, those extreme QAnon Republicans were unsafe around them. They're not the most stable people. Typical fear-mongering, typical gaslighting. Guess what, folks? There's actually never been a single recorded event of QA, non-terrorism or violent event. I'm not a huge fan of the whole Q thing. But that's just a fact. I'd rather a 4chan conspiracy theorist than actual violent Antifa domestic terrorists. Or BLM writers who burnt cities down and who have committed various horrible atrocities over the last couple of years. I mean, I don't really need to say much else. You guys are smart enough to understand the deep level of hypocrisy and dishonesty here, I guess. In conclusion, we'll just wrap up the video by going back to the initial point that I made at the start of the video in the intro. There's hypocrisy, there's dishonesty, and then there's the Democrats. And some significant news: Kevin McCarthy, too, is wrong for the country and wrong for the party. And there you go, folks. That's my little argument, if you will. President Trump has shown up. First of all, we looked at McCarthy, who has shown that he has a deep state, treasonous traitors, backstabbing bastard, trying to with Cheney. Look at getting President Trump to resign before his term was up. His first term was up in January 2021. He lied. By the way, Both these things he was lied and caught on tape about, also wanting to silence fellow conservatives. That's what we need: the Speaker of the House, a person who likes silencing dissent and opposing views. Wow. And then President Trump showing himself that he doesn't pick them perfectly. He backed McConnell and then regrets that he did. So there you go, folks. I think I covered and showed you evidence that using evidence-based arguments, we have shown that McCarthy's honor man to be trusted, and now the man on our side. And that is why we're saddened by President Trump's supporting him. And obviously, we get a man who not only worked at completing every single campaign promise that he made, the ones that he didn't is because he was opposed by his own party, like people like Kevin McCarthy, and of course, the Democrats. We saw light, finally, energy independence, great economy, no new wars, a president who represents and loves the people. And then in 2021, that all went away. And that's what hurts the most, is that we got a glimpse of how good it is and can be again, and it seems like President Trump is just supporting the old way of doing things, something we want to get away from. And that is, if you want a softer language because your sensitivities can't handle the truth, then take it this way. Here's the spoonful of sugar as truly disappointing. What President Trump has done, because we just had hope for something better. Alright. President Trump has a new woe on his plate. We have Reuters reporting yesterday, Donald Trump ordered by Jags to face new fraud lawsuit. Here we go. A New York judge on Fridays yesterday said former U.S. President Donald Trump must face a lawsuit by the state's attorney general accusing him of fraudulently overvaluing his namesake real estate company's assets and his own net worth, which of course, President Trump, right as a billionaire, he does all of the valuations. He's an appraiser of his own properties. And he's also the CFO. Absolutely ridiculous. Attorney General Letitia James had sued Trump, his adult children, Donald Jr., Eric and Ivanka, and the Trump Organization last September over an alleged scheme to inflate Trump's assets by billions of dollars through a decade of lies to banks and insurers. And what she called a staggering fraud. A fraud so staggering. They haven't yet gotten anything on Teflon Don yet because the guy is pretty squeaky clean. They can't get anything to stick. Even with all of the crazy power they have over judges throughout DC, they still can't get Trump because, I don't know, maybe because he's just innocent of all of these things. Just as Arthur Engoron of the state Supreme Court in Manhattan rejected defense claims that James waited too long to sue, fell short of establishing fraud, and should have better justified the $250 million of damages she is seeking. So the judge said no, those aren't valid arguments. We need President Trump to face this ridiculous lawsuit. And it's just more excuses. Let me give you the rest of the information. He also said Ivanka Trump could be sued despite her claim she had not falsified valuations and not worked for the Trump Organization since 2017, saying she can be liable for participating in continuing wrongs. So there you go, folks. Is not about justice. It's about going out to Trump and his family. She wasn't even there. But they want to go after her because of continuing wrongs. Things that continued even though she wasn't there when they happened. So a bank robber can now go to jail, corner these people for opening the door for other bank robbers to rob banks. You know, this is nuttery, but this is a notary that they get away with all the time, folks, all the time. Sophisticated defense counsel should have known better, and Gron wrote nonetheless, in a statement. James said Trump, quote, engaged in years of extensive financial fraud to enrich himself and keep the system, and must defend himself in court. So isn't Trump, as you know, is seeking another term in 2024, and having all these legal woes doesn't help them. And that's why they're having all these Mickey Mouse thinly veiled legal actions against President Trump. They always have to have been involved in a scandal every single day. If once one thing is debunked, it's another one. They always have to muddy his name. That is how the Marxist bastards roll. Okay, let's end with this. This is important. What are we getting from McCarthy? What are the concessions? What are the bullet points? Here we go. Single-member vote to oust Speaker. Votes on lawmaker term limits and border security. This is important. Freedom Caucus members on Rules Committee. Is that why the Freedom Caucus was so tough, and then when they got what they wanted, okay, Kevin, You can go ahead and be Speaker of the House. Protocol McCarthy PAC stays out of safe, primary racist. Because what do they do? What did Kevin McCarthy do? He sabotaged or attempted to sabotage many of the elections. He's not on our side. He's a swamp creature. Select Committee on Weaponization of DOJ. Send it to hours to rebuild before going to floors and reveal the salaries of government officials. Crazy world we live in, folks. Crazy world we live in, and yet they're still going after President Trump. Alright, thanks for being here, folks. Please receive a big hug from all of us.